Whew, boy, was that a crazy past 3 months. Me and Captain Crash got stuck in the Shadow Realm again. And he died helping me escape. Well, it's good to be back with nothing to apologize for, whatsoever. And if you don't buy that, I'm sorry I spent the past 3 months watching anime and not making any videos. But hey, look on the plus side. I found this shy dude. Well, anyway, today we're talking about my favorite JRPG, one of my favorite games of all time, Golden Sun for the GBA. So let's go. Starting with the story, and since this is an RPG, the story is a lot more detailed than other games I've covered so far, so if you don't want to hear spoilers, just go play the game now, because it's amazing and hugely underappreciated. The game begins with the main character Isaac and his childhood friend Garrett stuck in the middle of a storm destroying their village. There's a flood that destroys their friend Jenna's house, and her brother Felix ends up getting swept away by the flood and dies. You'll soon encounter some monsters in your village and have your first battles, but we'll get to that later. Not too long after that, you'll encounter a weird inhuman blue guy and pink girl, talking about some vague plan. These two are the main villains, Saturos and Minardi. It's not explained in this game what creatures they are, but you'll find out in the sequel. You battle them, and they kill you. Well, this game's a lot shorter than I remember. It's amazing it's still such high quality, even though you die so early on. Also, Jesus fucking Christ, this game opens up with your entire village in peril, your childhood friend dying in a flood, fighting monsters invading your village, and getting murdered. Jesus, rough day, guys. Okay, they don't actually kill you. The game picks back up a while after the storm, with Isaac and Garrett all healed up. The two of them, along with a third party member, previously mentioned Jenna, along with some old village elder guy, go to a temple up on the mountain called the Soul Sanctum, a man-made temple connecting to the elemental star chamber that protects it. The only way to go to get to the chamber is to be a synergy user. Synergy is this series form of magic, pretty much. Think mana from Seiken Densetsu, but its origins are from alchemy. Anyone who gets that reference gets brownie points from me, by the way. So, watch FMA. So, anyway, it's explained to be sort of like chi. It's a spiritual energy connected to the elements. Those who are able to harness it for magical purposes are known as adepts, and different types of adepts are related to different planets. The planets representing elements. Jupiter is wind, Mars is fire, etc. Anyway, you make it through the temple and into the elemental star chamber and try to collect the elemental stars. And the guys that kicked your ass in the storm shows up. Saturos and Minardi come in and start holding Jenna and the elder hostage. They tell you to recover the rest of the elemental stars and give the stars to them. Also, the guy who died in the storm, Felix, isn't actually dead, since Saturos and Minardi saved him and recruited him to their plan. Their plan is to light these lighthouses and return the power of alchemy to the world, but it could have potentially cataclysmic results. You manage to keep one of the elemental stars from them, but they take the village elder and Jenna. That's the basic premise, and I really like it. Usually returning the magical power of whatever to the world would be the hero's objective, but instead it's actually the antagonists, and I really like Saturos and Minardi as antagonists. The best villains are heroes of their own, after all. They have their own goals. They aren't necessarily evil. They're intending to do something good, they just don't realize the potential consequences of their actions. And are kind of ruthless in their execution, but they aren't strictly evil. The story and characters may seem kind of simple and basic, but the characters have a lot of really interesting, dynamics and stuff like that. The most interesting party member is Ivan, but even if they don't get a whole lot of development or have super interesting motivations, they're all really memorable and expressive. Overall, the story is engaging, if basic. It's ultimately a story about whether or not the ends justify the means, and I really like it. It's effective in its simplicity, but there's two main problems with it. The dialogue sucks. not strictly. Your party members have decent dialogue, but I hate the dialogue when you're talking to essential NPCs. It's really bad and exposition-y. Another big problem with it, and this ties to my biggest problem with the game overall, is the way it's structured is garbage. A lot of the game is spent in pretty pointless detours just for the sake of progressing. And a lot of these have little bearing in the actual plot. I seriously find myself forgetting some crucial plot elements. But anyway, we spent enough time on the story. Now let's talk about the presentation. The graphics in this game are really great. The overall sprites look really charming and memorable. The environments could really feel colorful and distinctive. And the battle screen sprites are fucking gorgeous and super detailed. Synergy attacks vary in coolness. Some of them look really badass and destructive, but some of them are kind of lame looking. One aspect of the visual presentation I like, though, is that during cutscenes, the characters have little clouds appear above their heads, displaying emotions. Characters also move around a lot in cutscenes. It may seem like a small thing, but it helps make cutscenes and dialogue bits feel just a bit more engaging. Even as a guy who loves old SNES, PS1 era RPGs, long dialogue scenes can get really tiring, so this little addition is nice. But let's talk about my favorite aspect of the presentation: the music. Oh my sweet Jesus, the music is so good. The prologue sounds great and sounds like you're about to embark on an epic quest. The storm is suitably menacing. Veil's theme has a really quaint, cozy feeling. The Soul Sanctum gives off a feeling that you're in uncharted territory. The Elemental Stars theme makes you feel like you're in a very important, sacred place. The snow-covered city sounds dull and hopeless. The Mercury Lighthouse sounds very ambient. Almost gives off a feeling of being lost, I guess. Toby's theme is very catchy and memorable. And the best theme of all, the Final Dungeons theme, the Venus Lighthouse. This theme is the one that I just mentioned is godlike. Seriously, do yourself a favor and listen to this game's soundtrack. I'll admit, not all of it is good to just listen to on its own, but they all fit the game's settings really well and make you feel very immersed. Now anyway, time to get on to the most important aspect, the gameplay. The battle system is, well, it's pretty basic. You got the jack-of-all-trades Isaac, the big beefy melee fighter Garrett, the magic specialist and best boy Ivan. I wrote an entire segment into the video for this guy, so get ready for that. And the white mage healer Mia. They're all here, although there is one aspect of the gameplay that make the battles interesting. The D-gens. Yes, I'm calling them D-gens. I don't give a fuck. These are little creatures you find throughout the game. They're pretty much like a cooler version of Pokemon. Like if Pokemon were in Final Fantasy or some shit. Well, that's a great idea. Anyway, you find them in caverns, the overworld map, and some dungeons. Sometimes you have to battle them, and they're actually pretty tough. Although the biggest risk when fighting them is, in true Pokemon fashion, they run away before you catch them. Although most of the time, you just have to solve a puzzle and work out and stuff like that. They work sort of like Materia in Final Fantasy VII, except instead of just giving you certain magic attacks, they up your stats by a lot. Finding one of these little guys is like a super level up. But you may wonder what they can add to battle. Well, they give you certain super attacks and stuff like that. That are like really strong attacks and powerful magic. But these attacks are sort of a double-edged sword. Using them will cause the degen to no longer be set, meaning that your stats weaken and go down drastically, making you vulnerable in things like boss fights. You can set them again, but then you waste a turn setting them a lot. Some good strategies for boss fights involve degens to ensure safety. You should set them again after using them, but this will make battles slower, but safer. At the same time, the less degens are set, the more powerful your summons are. It can actually be a good strategy to not have them set before bosses and tough enemies for quicker wins. But if you use summons for but if you use summons, you won't be able to set degens for a few turns. After leaving your whatever party member's degens you don't have set pretty vulnerable. The degens give you a lot of options and add a lot of layers to combat. It's one of the game's best aspects, and I love it. Although the degens give you options, being that they come in different types and are more suited to certain adepts. There's Saturn ones and Mercury ones. Although you can swap them around for different spells, I personally gotta admit, I don't love this aspect of the game. It's pretty underdeveloped. It's only ever useful in areas for... Hold on, I'm reading off a script on my phone. I gotta find where I am again. Here we go. It's only ever useful in areas for exploration. Yeah. Top of the class in English here, folks. To get stuff like treasure and items, but the different spells you get in battle are pretty lame. You may get 1 or 2 pretty good spells, but you're passing up like 7 great spells. It's a lot better to just assign the right degens to the right adepts. This is a pretty neat idea that's rendered basically useless by barebones execution. I get that this game pushed the GBA to the limit, and that I have to cut out some slack. But this is a pretty basic mechanic. I've seen stuff like this executed well in plenty of RPGs. So it's sad to see this one fall flat when everything else about the degens is so fleshed out and executed well. But what about outside battles? Well, I mean, that's pretty obvious. Every RPG is only fun in battles. The outside parts of the battles are just there to convey the story, and for you to get items and stuff like that, right? Nope, wrong, dipshit. This game is awesome, even outside the battles and cutscenes. Yeah, unlike most RPGs, I actually find myself having fun just going through areas and caves and stuff like that. You can use synergy on the world map, and it factors into a lot of puzzles and involving synergy. They're pretty simple, but engaging, and keep the gameplay outside of battles interesting. And there's some really fun and legitimately tricky puzzles in the Mercury Lighthouse. I had one that really stumped me for a while. I really like that this game's puzzles keep it interesting all throughout. Although there is one problem I have with this game's design, and it also sort of ties into the story at times. This game's design is very, go to this place and do that. Okay, now go to this place and do this. And there end up being a lot of characters that I end up feeling kind of worthless. They show up in one area, say something, or give you an important item, and then they're never important again. You pretty much just go to the next area and site and do stuff there. Honestly, some of the main game stuff in this game feels more like a side quest at points. Like, okay, this game is split in 2 games, so you only go to 2 of the lighthouses in this game, and the rest of the dungeons are just random areas. I don't have a huge problem with this, as if the lighthouses were the only dungeons, there would only be 4, but one of these dungeons is a mine in a flooded town. When I arrived at this part of the game, I seriously thought I was doing a side quest with some optional dungeon, only to realize that this is an essential part of the game. This just makes gameplay feel kind of disconnected from the story. A lot of the game is spent just interacting with the world and solving problems in towns. I don't mind this too much, as it does make the world feel more lively and immersive, but it does kind of make... But it does kind of like dour some of the stuff I've talked about. Now, let's talk characters. Now, when I say characters, I mainly meant Ivan, because he's best boy, and I love him. And please put him in Smash Sakurai, I beg you. But let's talk about the others first. Okay, there's the main character, Isaac, and he's one of my least favorite tropes in RPGs. A silent protagonist. Isaac is still fairly expressive, so I don't hate him. But in a game where story is the focus, the main protagonist should talk. But aside from him, there's Garrett. Garrett's sort of that mean but caring childhood friend type that you begin You begin the game with him as a party member, and it remains that way till the end. So he and Isaac are obviously familiar. He's kind of mean and he gives you a hard time, but ultimately he's a good friend and that cares about Isaac and their quest. I like him. He's pretty memorable, but then there's the fourth and final party member, Mia. She's a Mercury adept who lives in the town of Emil. It's a snow town with people often getting sick. She's a healer. She heals all those in the village. She's pretty tired and overworked, but she's kind and compassionate and cares greatly for those around her. Again, another pretty memorable character. I don't like her as much as Garrett, but I still enjoy Mia. Now on to this game's best character, Ivan. You first meet Ivan early on in the game. He's a mind reader and is trying to save his master. He's shy and nervous, but kind of friendly. He's sort of scared about tackling the task of saving his master. You can save in a late game side quest. But after you help him out a little, he joins your party. From then on, he takes on the task of saving the world with you, and later on in a cutscene, it's revealed to him that he's the Jupiter Adept. And throughout this, you learn what an Adept is. So now Ivan is a scared and nervous kid, learns he has a greater purpose and destiny, that he is something special. But okay, we know how it goes, right? He gains confidence and becomes some badass action hero after previously rejecting his role as the Jupiter Adept. Except, no, he never really grows into that badass, confident action hero. He just sort of stays the shy, nervous, nice guy. But he accepts his role as the Jupiter Adept and mission of saving the world. And that's why I love Ivan so much. He starts the game with as low a scale a task as rescuing his master, and he's nervous about it. He doesn't think there's too much special about him, but he'll try his best, and by this point in the game now, he learns that he has a much greater purpose, and even though he's still scared and still nervous, he accepts this role, and this mission, no questions asked. And that I find that really likable. I like that in a character, as a guy who loves superheroes and stuff like that. But anyway, in conclusion, Golden Sun is a phenomenal game and one of my all-time favorites. On the surface, yeah, the plot is kind of simple. Most of the characters don't have a whole lot of depth, but it's a game that's excellent despite its simplicity. It takes somewhat basic ideas from other RPGs and makes a masterwork out of them. And that is why I'm giving this game. Yeah. Remember, top of the class English, folks. That's why I'm giving this game a score of 10 out of 10. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, and if you enjoy my stuff and want to see more in the future, maybe subscribe. And like out with the googly eyes, signing off. By the way, if you thought I stuttered a little more than usual, I haven't done this in 3 months. Which, by the way, sorry about that. Yeah, there'll be another one soon. I promise. I won't disappear again. Probably.